In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
Welcome back to another edition of the Daily Memphian's Memphis Grizzlies podcast. This is your host, Grizzlies beat writer Drew Hill, joined as always by columnist Chris Herrington. It is Summer League time. I heard you playing Yacht Rock on the radio station this morning as your song choice. Enjoyed that.
Shout out for people who didn't listen to the radio segment. That was a long distance dedication, or maybe short distance. I don't know whether he's in Salt Lake City or Memphis or somewhere else, but that was for Jason Wexler, president of the Memphis Grizzlies. His favorite joke he does on Twitter every year around this time, and maybe he's already done it, is to suggest humming the song or singing the song "Summer Breeze" by Sills and Cross, but change the phrase from "Summer Breeze" to "Summer League."
Yeah, so shout out to Jason Wexler on that one. I did not see him. I am here in Salt Lake City. I was down at Shoot Around this morning, talked to Gigi Jackson. A lot of the new coaching staff is there. We're going to talk about that. A lot of them were there. Jason March is coaching the team this year at Summer League. We got the roster. We got to see those guys in action. I watched Zach Edey shoot 3-foot hook shots wearing a Grizzlies uniform. I might be one of the first people to ever see that. And so there's obviously a lot of excitement about him, and he will be one of the headliners in Summer League. Let's just start here, Chris. Before we get into the coaching stuff and free agency and all that, what are you most excited to watch? Like, what are you most looking forward to seeing over these next, couple weeks with the Grizzlies in Summer League?
I think I'm most interested in Zach Edey. I don't know if that's going to be the most telling necessarily, but I think that's what I'm most interested in. He's the player who, even with everything that Gigi Jackson did for the Grizzlies last season, I think Zach Edey is the player on the Summer League team most likely to be in the starting lineup for the Memphis Grizzlies this season. He's also never played NBA basketball before. So I think the intrigue starts with Zach Edey. He's also a rookie big man in Summer League, and sometimes Summer League, Khalil Ware just had a big Summer League game, but sometimes Summer League can be more of a guards game. It's a little more up and down. It won't be quite as structured as NBA basketball will be. So I think Zach Edey is the most intriguing. I think, in some ways, Scottie Pippen Jr., Jake LaRavia may be the most meaningful. Those are guys I would expect to be really strong in summer play. And I would have some level of concern, not in the individual game, but over the course of Summer League, if they are not really good in Summer League. Whereas, to me, Zach Edey and Gigi Jackson both have a little bit of margin for error in terms of summer play.
With Edey, it's interesting because I think he has the opportunity to go post really big numbers.
Yeah.
Because I honestly think that some of the guys he's going to be playing against, like we just saw him score 37 against Klingon, right?
Right.
Klingon would be on the top tier of bigs here at Summer League. I guess not here in Salt Lake City, but will be in Vegas. And so Edey's not really going to be playing against those guys. It's funny. We're going to get Edey versus Kenneth Lofton Jr.
Yes.
Which is excellent.
There you go. We buried the lead. That if there's ever a guy, and I think, again, I founded the Kenneth Lofton Union of Believers. I think Lofton has NBA level skills if he can, maintain shape and maintain seriousness and get an opportunity. So I think he's got a chance to really be a meaningful NBA player, or at least a real NBA player. But he is definitely a Summer League guy. And
definitely.
I think he's going to go right at Zach Edey. So that's going to be an interesting sort of first test for Zach Edey in Summer League.
I did a little bit of digging to go back and look at how have top bigs selected in the draft performed in Summer League in the past. And I didn't go way back, and I didn't really go beyond the very top of the draft. But two of the guys I did look at, Evan Mobley and DeAndre Ayton, right, who are both bigs, kind of a center in Mobley, but still had a lot of the skills around the basket, right? And they I I'm just saying this because I feel like if Edey doesn't play well in the first game, like obviously everyone's going to overreact to it. But like both of those guys, they came out a little slow out of the gate, and then by the end of summer league, they found their rhythm and they were posting big numbers, like made all summer league teams. I I definitely could see Edey doing something like that. And again,
Well,
like
in addition to Lofton, I think thinking a little bit more about this specific matchup, Lofton's sort of the fun thing. I don't know whether they'll all play, but Walker Kessler's on the Utah Jazz Summer League roster. He was on the FIBA team a year ago. He's on the Summer League roster right now. And they have another center they just took in this draft, and Kyle Filipowski.
yeah, so could be a fun matchup, honestly.
If all three of those guys play, that's probably the best trio of bigs the Grizzlies are going to see all summer. It's got to be.
Yes,
Kessler,
yeah.
Filipowski, and Lofton.
Listen,
that's a really good front court for a summer league team.
I'm not diving into the summer league schedule thinking about matchups. So I can't even tell you who they're playing in Vegas, to be honest with you. I just know what day that they're playing. So I haven't looked into that, but I would guess yes. I would guess that probably is the case. But like, I know this is kind of like a strange question, and there's probably not a clear answer to it. But like, what would be a good summer league stat line for Zach Edey? Like, because he could, in my opinion. Like, I'm not saying he will, but I'm saying it is a possibility, especially depending on the way the Grizzlies play, that he could have like 16 and 10, 18 and 10, like by the time summer league ends. I don't know if he'll play either, but
no, I think something like that would be a good summer league stat line. You just don't know how much he's going to get the ball. He might get the ball a lot because he's 7'5" and he's got his soft hands, But he also, in the game, may start getting up and down and guards just chucking up shots. And, summer league basketball is a little bit different from real basketball. I mean, in Grizzlies history, the two summer league MVPs or two of the summer league MVPs have been Russ Smith and Josh Selby. And so those kind of guys.
Wow.
And so there are questions about Zach Edey generally, but questions about like summer league Zach Edey. I mean, I don't know what to expect. He could go for 30 and 15. He could end up with like 8 points and 5 rebounds. Who knows?
Russ Smith was an all-time shot chucker at Louisville.
Yeah.
Like all time. So it checks out. You're right. That it could turn into that. But they also could, like, the other part of this is just, what is Edey going to be doing, right? Like, are they going to post him up and let him get position and throw him the ball and turn around and score? Like, they might do some of that this year. I'm not saying they're not going to do any of that, but like, that's probably, he's not going to be doing a ton of that, you would think.
No, it'll be interesting to see how much they sort of tip off what his usage will be at the NBA level. And on one hand, you could say, well, it's summer league. He's not playing with the real players. But he kind of is, at least from the jump, playing with the real players. Because I'm going to assume there's summer league starting lineup with everyone available. There's going to be Scottie Pippen Jr., who's on a two-way, but is probably going to be playing major backup point guard minutes all season for the Grizzlies. Jalen Wells will be on the main roster, may or may not play much. But then Gigi Jackson's going to be in the rotation, probably. Jake LaRavia, much like Scottie Pippen Jr., may not be in the de facto rotation, but will actually play a lot, I think, for the Grizzlies. Like, that is a lineup I could see, game 23, middle of the second quarter, you look up, and Scottie Pippen Jr., Jalen Wells, Gigi Jackson, Jake LaRavia, and Zach Edey are playing basketball together. Like, that's a real Grizzlies lineup.
Yeah. Nah, maybe not one that's getting used in a game. But
I think it could be, depending on how things go, and not a lot. But, like, set Wells out. I think Scottie Pippen Jr. and Zach Edey running a pick and roll in summer league, they're going to be running a pick and roll in regular season basketball too. Sometimes I think Scottie Pippen Jr. is going to play a lot for the Grizzlies this season. So he's not getting reps with John Morant, but he is getting reps with a point guard he will play with in the NBA.
Yeah. To answer my own question, like, I did a newsletter, I think, last week about kind of stuff I'm going to pay attention to. I'm also most excited to see Edey again, because I think that the numbers might be really good. Like, I have a hunch that the hype train may be picking up instead of slowing down, because I think based purely on size and the players he's going up against, there's a good chance he might post really good statistics from summer league. The question is, how legitimate is that in an NBA context with how the Grizzlies are actually going to utilize him when the regular season?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I wonder about his pace, because he got those numbers in. It's not just about getting the shots in the post, but it's about they would slow it down and run half court offense at Purdue. And I think in summer league, it's going to be so up and down. Is he going to get up and down enough? That'd be maybe one of the first things we were able to test with Zach Edey is the ability to like keep up with the pace of play. Because I think summer league pace is probably faster than NBA pace, and certainly much faster than Big Ten pace.
The other headliner is Gigi.
Yep.
I spoke to Gigi this morning. He's still the same Gigi. Can confirm, still the same goofy, funny Gigi that he was a season ago. I asked him about Edey. He obviously said that Edey is huge. I don't think there is a single player, Chris, that is more excited about playing with Zach Edey than Gigi Jackson, who said the first interaction he had with Zach Edey was telling him that he is the greatest college big we have ever seen. That was the first thing that Gigi apparently told Zach when he met him.
In college basketball.
Yeah. Greatest college big that we've ever seen. And if other people don't believe your game is going to translate, I believe in you. So, like, we didn't even hold back on the hi, nice to meet you, name's Gigi, nice to meet you, name's Zach. No, none of that happened. It just was straight into Gigi telling Zach that he's incredible and he can't wait. He said he was starstruck meeting Zach Edey. I mean college starstruck by at this point.
College basketball history for Gigi Jackson began about 5 years ago, I think. He's not he wasn't out in these streets watching Ralph Sampson win back-to-back player of the year, watching Bill Walton and Lou Alcindor at UCLA. So his frame of reference for all-time greatest college bigs is fairly narrow. And so, sure, Zach Edey, 2-time National Player of the Year.
I don't know how this ever happened. Well, I do kind of know how it happened, but like, obviously Gigi has a ton of hype. This is another thing I just talked to him about because he did play really well. He had an awesome rookie season, and the guy gets compared to like LeBron and Kobe, and like it's just, that's a little aggressive. And Gigi will even tell you that. But I think the confidence is reaching a point with him that I'm pretty encouraged that I think he's going to play really well in summer league. I do think he's going to get used in ways that they don't typically use him. And I don't get the sense that this hype is going to his head. I'll put it that way.
Right.
And so I think that's encouraging based on just that one conversation that I had with him. And I want to know if they're going to try to use him on the ball because, and I'm not saying he should play heavy minutes on the ball, but like I want to see the two things I want to see from Gigi in summer league, to the two main things, three. One, can he be effective defensively? Because he almost seems bigger than he was the last time I saw him standing next to him. Maybe he was always that tall and I just didn't notice. But I want to see him be an effective defender. I want to see him play make a little bit. I think his new role is going to have him in the corner a little bit more often if everybody is healthy. So the other thing, because of that, the last thing I want to see is 3-point shooting because he was like a 32% 3-point shooter at South Carolina, comes in as a rookie, shoots 37%. He's just sitting there draining threes in practice with nobody guarding him today. Like, is that 37%? How real was that? I think it was pretty real. There's nothing in the shot that makes me believe it wasn't. And just how good of a 3-point shooter can he be? I think that those are all important questions for Gigi.
Yeah, but I don't think we're going to learn too much about the 3-point shooting question in summer league. Just because 3-point shooting, it varies game to game. And so, I mean, you could be the greatest shooter in the world and go 2 for 16 in a 6-game stretch. You could be a bad shooter and get hot for, a few games. And so I'm wary of putting too much stock in particularly good or particularly bad 3-point shooting.
To be fair,
in a small sample like that.
Yes. To your point, remember Jake LaRavia's first summer league game? He made a bunch of threes.
He made
And
like two or
everybody was
three
like,
in the first half, and immediately people were saying he's the next Mike Miller.
and
Like
then
immediately.
the beginning of the season came and the shot stopped going. Anyway, I
Yeah.
interrupted you, but to your point, that's probably pretty fair.
Yeah, and so my thing generally with summer league is like I don't think it's irrelevant. I think it's relevant. It's all information is relevant, but I think you have to sort of like put it in the context of other information, and even the degree to which we take summer league seriously, take all of summer league seriously. And so to your point, like don't make grand. Oh, you can do whatever you want. I don't care, but I will be wary of making grand proclamations, based on the first half of the first summer league game about guys.
Well, that's inevitable though, because we haven't had basketball in a long time. So everyone's going to get
Right.
excited about what they see. It's part of the
Yeah.
fun, It may not be the smartest thing, but it's part of the fun. Beyond them, Cam Spencer, Jalen Wells, beyond GG and Edey, what are you looking for?
Well, with second round picks, anything's possible. They could very easily just not be able to play NBA basketball. And so I think if they look good and comfortable out there and they hold up, especially Cam Spencer, you seem like you hold up enough athletically to hack it. Because I know he played on a great college team, but the average talent in summer league is still greater than the average talent in college basketball, even at that level. And so I think you're looking for signs that they can belong. You're not looking for red flags. I think there's more downside than upside in summer league. I think really bad summer league performances are more meaningful than really good summer league performances generally. And so to me, for most players in summer league, the first thing you're looking for is a lack of evidence that they can't play, right? I mean, the Sheep Habits their summer league. I remember he was on the same team as rookie Hamed Haddadi. I always remember, and there was some summer league game, and Antonio Harvey used to play for the Lakers, a former big man, was broadcasting. And at one point midway through the game, Antonio Harvey says, Hamed Haddadi's better than Hashim Thabit. And his broadcast partner starts laughing. Thought I was, you're saying crazy stuff. And Antonio Harvey stopped and said, no, I am serious. Hamed Haddadi is better than Hashim Thabit. And guess what? Hamed Haddadi was better than Hashim Thabit, and Hamed Haddadi was not very good. And so you're looking, I think, more than evidence that a guy's going to be really good, you're looking to avoid evidence that the guy can't play. And so to me, that's a starting point really with summer league.
Yeah, Wells is interesting to me because as I got a little bit further into like following his path and watching some of the clips after the draft, he does profile as like your prototypical NBA shooter, like somebody that shoots that well from three. I'm not saying he's going to be Luke Kennard, but like that's the type of role you could imagine him in. And with that size, I think that is a big advantage. And so if he's good in summer league, he's like the one player where you can't overreact to summer league, but if he's good in summer league, I think that would raise the bar in confidence in terms of what he can be, because I do think he's going to be an NBA player. And that's not always the case for second round picks. Those are pretty hit or miss, but I think he has a chance to be a really good player, and I'm interested in seeing what that's going to look like, because he wasn't this spectacular defender, but he has positional size and he moves well.
Right.
And can he be that? I do think he could become that. So he's
I think for him and Spencer in particular, there's enough evidence there on the shooting that I'm really looking for the other stuff. With Jalen Wells in particular, I'm looking for, are you really a good enough athlete for the NBA level? Because I'm just going to take it on faith you're a good enough shooter. That's not certain, but I think the evidence is good on that. And he's not just a catch and shoot guy. Like he's shown that he can hit step backs, he can sort of relocate, and do some other stuff. But are you going to get in that context? And is it going to be like, oh, okay, he can hang athletically, or are you going to see a guy just can't get to rebounds, can't get to loose balls, gets overwhelmed off the dribble? I'm not saying any of that stuff will happen, but I think that's something I'll look for. Like when the first game Vince Williams Jr. played, and you and I talked about it like after one summer league game, and it took us a year and a half, but we ended up being right about it. The first summer league game he played, we thought he looked really good, and it wasn't just about shots or not shots. So you could see athletically like he could hang. And I don't think Jalen Wells profiles as that kind of player. He'll be more shooting oriented. He's not I don't think he's going to be the athlete Vince Williams is, but I'm looking for a lack of signs that he can't hang athletically. Like I'm looking for a lack of red flags athletically with him, I think.
Were you surprised Laravia was on the roster?
No, I think that was hinted at late in the regular season. And my sense of that is it's not a case of the Grizzlies asking him to play summer league. And it's not a case of when you see this sometimes, it's not a case of a do or die. This is my last chance to prove something, or like they may cut me before the season starts. I think for him, it's a proactive, deliberate. I finally, it took me 2 years, but I finally have a little bit of momentum coming out of this season, and I want to carry through. I want to double down on that momentum. I want to keep pressing forward and not lose this momentum I've had. And so I think it's a good thing he's playing summer league. It's a good thing that he's playing summer league, from what I gather, because he wants to play summer league and because he wants to keep building on the momentum that it seems like he carried out of the season.
You would think, based on the roster, that this would be a competitive summer league team. Now, here's the thing with that, because I'm seeing like the online comments is like, wow, Grizzlies summer league roster's loaded. I don't think they're going to play all these guys in all these games.
No,
you get three games in 3 days in Utah. They're not using them all.
In the games, if games where they don't play, the guys don't matter. And like ultimately, like it doesn't matter whether the Grizzlies win the summer league championship, right? And so, like, it doesn't matter whether they win games. It matters whether you feel better about the players who matter coming out of it than you felt going into it. And so, those players playing fewer games means you have fewer times you will see them. But the degree that it impacts the Grizzlies' ability to thrive in summer, like, who cares? It doesn't matter if they win or lose these games.
I'm looking this up because I don't want to be wrong about the Grizzlies do indeed play the Jazz tonight, correct? It is the Jazz? Yes. Okay. So you had the Jazz summer league roster pulled up, right?
I did, but I think I don't.
Okay. So, all right, let's do a little prediction game.
Yeah, I've got it back up. Yeah,
Kenneth Lofton and Zach Edey, assuming that they both play. Let's guess. Let's try to guess the stat line here. I'll go first, just to give you. I'll go 18 points, 8 rebounds for Kenneth Lofton, the club. And I'll go 16 points, 12 rebounds for Edey.
I'm going over on the Edey points. I'll take the risk and go the over on the Edey points. I think I'm taking the under on all 4 of those other numbers. 12 rebounds is a lot of rebounds.
I think he's going to get a lot.
He might. The thing with Lofton, again, I'll go back to looking at their roster. Is Walker Kessler going to play in this game? Is Kyle Filipowski going to play in this game? Lofton might be the third big on the summer league team. And so if all 3 of those guys play, I don't know if he'll get the opportunity. Darius Bazley is also on the summer league roster.
You might be right. They may not. He may not get much run. So that may be an aggressive, a little bit of an aggressive prediction. The only reason I only went 16 on Edey is because, as I said, a lot of times the top bigs selected, they don't get a lot of shots up their first time that they play in summer league. Like they're trying to fit in the system, they're trying to get acclimated, and then as summer league goes along, they kind of build and build and build. But I think he's going to get a ton of rebounds. You know, they finished. They had a shoot around this morning, and I believe they played a little. I'm not saying that they ran 5-on-5 like for an extended period of time, but they had to get used to each other, so they played a little bit. And Gigi said that like every ball that hit the rim, Zach Edey touched it, whether he got the rebound or not. He had a hand on it, and he was like, "That's pretty encouraging to see because I think he's going to do a lot for the 3-headed snake," as he said, with Bane, Morant, and Jackson. So I think he's going to be good. I think we're going to have an exciting Zach Edey summer league experience here. So I'm looking forward to watching him play and writing about it and hopefully getting to know him a little bit more. The other big piece of Grizzlies news is we had some coaching hires made. The lead assistant is Tuomas Isalo. How do you like that pronouncing? pronunciation. How do you like that?
Have you confirmed that? Is that an accurate pronunciation?
I believe it is.
Okay.
Tuomas.
Tuomas. Okay.
And he comes via Paris basketball of the French LNB Pro A and the Euro, and they also played in the Euro Cup last season. Lost in the championship to Richichet's team in the French league. Won the Euro Cup. He before that, there's a few interesting things on this guy that I've written about, but I haven't put out yet because there's I think there's some other stuff I got to figure out. But um, a few interesting things. One is that we spent a lot of time talking about the LaRoche offense and all that. And I actually heard you talking to Jeffrey about this on the radio today. While, and I know, the offense that he runs isn't that different from your typical NBA offense. It's a pick and roll offense. That's what he calls it.
You're talking about Tuomas.
Yes.
Not Noah LaRoche, right?
Yeah, yes, that's who I'm talking about. While that offense isn't that out there, when you go and you kind of listen to what's the interviews that he's done, he did like an hour-long podcast. He's done like some YouTube clips. And I dug through everything on the internet and tried to learn as much about this guy as possible. I will say that a lot of the same emphasis or like focus on the offense is all centered around the same thing. Like both, not to say that LaRoche is going to have he's more of a player development guy, but like it's like reverse engineering offense of like, if the most important thing is forcing the defensive player to close out, let's start there and figure out how we're going to get to that point. And a lot of it is like the concept that Isolo talks about is this collective basketball idea of playing with all five players. And so when you're running pick and rolls, you need to be teaching all five players to move. And so it's not a two-man game. It has to always be this five-man game, which is also a concept that I think LaRoche shares with him, that they both have talked about in these philosophies. And so, again, I know he's going to be part in helping the offense, the new lead assistant hire, Isolo. And I know LaRoche really is going to probably be more of a player development guy. But it's just interesting that I did see some crossover as I dug into both in terms of basketball philosophy and the way that they would operate an offense if they, have the reins there. So I don't think they're all that different, but I do think that a lot of the hires are a little bit innovative, I guess, different, and it's not recycling the same NBA coaching names that you get that you feel like are around all the time and have made stop after stop after stop. Now they have some of those experienced NBA guys, but I don't mind making hires like this. I think that this is a way to try to find really good staff. And I come away, I don't know how much of it is going to matter on the court. It's going to be up to Ja, Dez, and Jaren to play games and play well, but I think they did a pretty good job in building this staff this summer.
Yeah, I mean, we'll find out. I think you always get excited about new hires, but like the reality is, like, we don't know, and a lot of these guys have not. I'm reluctant to overdo the meaning of assistant coach hires generally. I would say that they made an assistant coaching change a year ago with the idea of that was connected to we're changing our offensive philosophy a little bit, and we're trying to be better on offense. And it didn't really get tested because the team blew up. I mean, the team was bad offensively. I don't think that was a reflection on philosophical or coaching changes. I think that was a reflection on what happened with the roster. The coach that they hired a year ago is part of that philosophy change or philosophy. I don't think changes too much. Philosophy tweak is back. Patrick Sandrews. They've added at least one more that fits into that notion. I think you'll hear some new terminology. I think, the shot diet of the Memphis Grizzlies was already quote unquote modern in the sense that it was focused on pressuring the rim and leveraging that into threes. Grizzlies have taken a lot of threes. They haven't made many. I think they'll continue to try to tweak in that direction in terms of more pace of play, um, more 5 out kind of stuff, even with Zach Edey. But I think fans are probably overrating the degree of like strategic change you will discern with your eyes when watching the team, and underrating the degree to which these changes are about other stuff. I think it's a little bit more about player development, and it's more about sort of internal processes and how you develop players and how you run practices and just all the stuff that goes into coaching that's not just what you see for 48 minutes when you watch a game. I don't think the Grizzlies are going to look radically different than they've looked before because of these coaching changes. And I think what will ultimately matter in terms of wins and losses is less the coaching strategy and the lingo you hear than like who stays healthy and like who improves.
Yeah, I taking that into consideration, I still think I have some insight here on some of the coaches that, I mean, I'm with you. It is going to be, I don't think it's going to be, you're going to see a radical change. I do think in the end it's going to matter how the players play and not necessarily what they've done around it from a coaching staff standpoint. But it is interesting, though, that they've chosen to replace and promote as many people as they have.
Well, yeah, but my point was I think that was driven more. It was driven more, but it's both. But I think it was driven more by the player development question than by the gameplay strategy question. That's my sense.
Well, just look at the coaches that they have in place now. So you got Jenkins as the head coach. You've got Tuomas Isalo, as we were just talking about. He's going to be the lead assistant. He's obviously another offensive mind guy. Behind him, you've got Patrick St. Andrews, offensive mind guy, retained from last season, brought back.
Right.
I think Patrick St. Andrews will probably be a front of the bench guy. Anthony Carter, from what I've heard, who's a player development guy, is now elevated, and I would probably guess he's going to be a front of the bench guy, from what I've heard. And he is a player development guy, like through and through. He's the guy that got a lot of credit for Gabe Vincent and Max Strus in Miami, and got a lot of credit from G.G. Jackson last season. So now you've elevated him as a player development guy. LaRoche was a player development hire. Joe Boylan might be the best hire they've made. I think he was a great hire. He gets a lot of credit for Naz Reid and McDaniels in Minnesota. He had a previous stop in Memphis as a player development guy. Now he's coming back to Memphis. Chris Finch, the Timberwolves coach, speaks very highly of him. And then you hired Patrick Mutombo, who was a former Raptors G League head coach. So another player development guy. So my point is, and you elevated Jason March, who's been your G League coach. So there's a massive focus on player development. It seems based on what
I think it's notable that LaRoche was the one that happened early in the process. You broke that news early on. I think there was a more active decision to overhaul player development, and that happened early in the process. And I think the hire of Tuomas Isalo as a lead assistant, I think that happened pretty late in the process, right? I think that's something they're thrilled to have, but I don't think when you reported the Noah LaRoche hire, I don't think that was certain that was going to be the case. I don't know if they knew who their lead assistant was going to be at that point, but they knew they were overhauling their player development system.
Yeah, I would say educated guesses. You are correct there. The Isola stuff, I think, played out later, than a lot of these other guys. But to land a guy who comes from Europe and has had the level of success that he's had, I think is good. I mean, the other interesting thing about it, like, not only was he so successful with Paris basketball last year, but just a couple other notes. Like, so he coached these two teams in Germany. I'm not going to try to pronounce the names. One of them was like a club that doesn't have money really to spend. So he was like working on a budget and he got them promoted. The next he goes on and he takes some of those players. He goes and wins a championship at the top level of German basketball. And then this apparently, because I was listening to a few interviews, like this doesn't happen very often. But he leaves to go to the Paris job. And a lot of his players wanted to follow him to Paris, and a lot of them were on short-term deals with the German club. I believe it's Bonn is how you pronounce it. And so they all followed him to Paris and then used that team to win a championship. And so that doesn't happen often. And he kind of talked about how the German club had to take a lot of heat because all their players left and they kind of had to play a role in that. And so he left him a little high and dry there, but I think it's a good sign that his players liked him enough that they were willing to move countries to go try to stay with their coach because they felt like they had a good thing going. So he does have a really fascinating background for sure.
And he's definitely the kind, there are different kinds of lead assistants in the NBA. And everyone, I don't know if everyone, most people want to be head coach at some point, only so many jobs. But he is someone who profiles as someone who is on that track to be potentially an NBA head coach. I mean, he more than say like Brad Jones when he was lead assistant, or a lot of other people around the league who could be lead assistants. You don't necessarily think they're going to be an NBA head coach at some point. Most people won't be because there are only 30 jobs. But this guy, because he's had success as a head coach at a very high level, and now stepping into the NBA as a lead assistant, he definitely profiles as someone who's on the fast track to those kind of opportunities. The Grizzlies just had a lead assistant recently who left to go get a head coaching job in Darko for help me with the last name. Rajakovic. And I think he was very highly regarded, including by the Grizzlies. So I think if anything, this is an attempt to like bolster that role next to Taylor Jenkins to get it back to the level that they felt they had with Darko.
Last thing on Islo, and then I'll drop it just because we've been talking about him probably too much. But I was looking at his Paris team, and it is led by a 5'9" point guard that's a very streaky shooter that led the entire team in points per game just by getting to the basket. TJ Shorts the second. TJ Shorts at 5'9", excellent basketball name, by the way. Yep. TJ Shorts the second. Second leading scorer. I don't want to mispronounce the last name, but sharpshooter, big body two guard, who can also get to the basket a little bit. It is literally like the copy of the European copy of Morant and Bane. So hopefully he can get those two guys open shots and they can succeed this year as well. But that's enough on Islo. We've talked about him a lot, but I'm excited for the game tonight. It should be entertaining here. And then when we start in Vegas, I think that's kind of when people really start to pay attention to Summer League. I don't know. Are you going to be dialed in tonight to Salt Lake City?
I'm planning on it.
Is it on TV?
I don't even have TV anymore. I don't know. I think hopefully it'll be on, NBA, on the NBA League Pass side or the Grizzlies side or ESPN side. I'll be watching on my laptop somewhere.
Well, it should be good fun. Salt Lake City is a lot cooler than Memphis right now. I can tell you that. And you're in Minnesota again. So
no, I'm in Memphis.
Oh, you're still in Memphis.
So in Memphis, I just got back from Arkansas. I just went to visit my mother. Just got back today.
So how was the heat? I was in Florida last week on vacation, seeing my family. How's been the extreme heat warning?
Oh, it hasn't felt like extreme heat. It's certainly very muggy and very humid. But by Memphis standards, it doesn't seem too bad.
It is like 91 degrees outside in Salt Lake City today, and it feels like it's 75 compared to Memphis just because there's no humidity at all. So
in Vegas is hitting 120 today.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 117 when I get there. It's going to be misery, like just horrible the whole time I'm there. But, it'll be fun. We've got basketball to watch and basketball to write about and talk about. So I'm looking forward to it. Well, that's going to do it for us this week. We might join you, again before we get to Vegas at some point and break down some of the early Summer League games and talk a little bit more Zach Edey. But until then, as always, thanks for listening. For Drew and for Chris, we're out of here.